we're recording.
What are we gonna
That's such a
yeah.
good beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the third part in the series. You were here for Act 1, sunlight and light, and then you were here for Act 2, water and hydration, and then 3, like Lauren is away, and she's a teacher of like circadian rhythms and water, and how like all water isn't the same, and how do we structure it and all that stuff. And I was like, well, what's the next element that we could speak on that I'm more the focus on, because based on our schedule, she's away this weekend, and so I was like, well, I can definitely talk about soil for days. So,
Nice.
so, yeah, and in many ways, I'm like, oh no, there's not like a big audience, and then it's like actually more comfortable for me to start public speaking in groups I trust or like I can be familiar with. So, the topic today is soil health and nutrient density, and I wonder like what that means to us, what that like what I mean, what is soil, what is soil health, and then what are nutrients and how do they become dense. There's like a chain there that is really intentional for me about how do we speak about what soil really is and what makes up living soil, what makes it alive, what creates health, what destroys health in the soil, and then how does that create or deplete nutrients, like the care of the soil being directly linked to the quality, amount, concentration, diversity, accessibility, availability of the nutrients in the food itself. Even just like starting with that premise is that the quality of our food is directly linked to the quality of our soil, is like maybe radical enough for most people.
And then the quality of our life.
And then the quality of our life, the qualities of our bodies.
Now I'm getting excited, so I'm going to turn on my recorder.
Okay, great. This is our first time meeting, and I called her on the phone yesterday, and so I was like, it's so hard for me to meet somebody on electronically, because I usually have so much more I want to connect with them on. So yeah, I just appreciate you being here. Soil health and nutrient density as a starting point, as a premise of linking the health of our soil and the health of our food. And in David Montgomery and Anne Bickley's most recent book, like the health of the soil, the health of the plant and animal, the health of the human, like really tying that back together feels so important. And still, even before I begin, especially now that you brought your recorder, like I spent the morning researching news about Gaza. And so the fact that I can have a conversation about nutrient density in food is like, maybe it's a woke caveat or premise, or like people could discredit me for mentioning it, but it feels like there is a privilege in being able to even talk about having nutrient density in food when so many people right now are without food. And it's like I would give the most GMO, the most non-organic flour, whatever is available, to Palestine right now. Like I wish I could just get any food to most of the world, like Sudan, the people in the immigration jails, like treated like they are right now. Like it feels important for me when I speak about this level of regenerative farming and the relative inaccessibility, both intellectually and financially and like geographically, to these kinds of systems, to be able to name that that's an unfortunate place of where we're at in the world, and that I want all beings to have access to healed ecologies and to nutrient dense foods, but that right now we don't, and that I want all beings to be fed, even if it's from a Roundup desiccated wheat grown in Ukraine that gets shipped across the Mediterranean. So yeah, my opening prayer in some ways, that just all beings be fed, and that eventually all beings are fed with nutrient dense food from healed soil.
I really deeply appreciate that you're saying that, and I want to take it another level, which is that one of the premises I hold is that if we all were eating nutrient-dense food, we'd be able to think about things like Gaza.
I completely agree.
And that that part of what we're seeing of the breakdown of society and the breakdown of ethics, etc., is that we literally as societies all around the world can't think very clearly anymore. And I think there's a reason why people who are living more indigenous lifestyles have
value sets,
have kept their wisdom and their values, is that they actually have what's needed in order for a brain to work, and for a microbiome to work,
their organs to function.
I mean, our brain, our microbiome turns on brain development in utero. It creates all of our like emotional hormones. It's like so much there.
We could just take that sentence for just a moment as a like a prism into this topic. Our microbiomes in utero turn on brain development. Wow. And like that's probably easily provable within the scientific literature. So then how is that linked to soil? You want to answer? You want me to answer?
Well, I mean, I'll say a little bit about that, which is that I think the current system in which there are so many antibiotics in our medical system, in the way that we raise animals, etc., but also in glyphosate, which was patented as a broad spectrum antibacterial. And never brought to market because it kills all the good guys.
And an oral antibiotic as well.
So I think that we're limping along on very, very, very partial microbial communities, so that we're just, we just don't have what's needed in order for our brains to work right, and for our emotions to work right. And so the how do those nutrients get right from the soil to the plants to us, often through animals? That's like the next piece. But I'm just saying, like, my first rule is like, first, like, don't kill stuff. Then it's kind of like what you're saying about Gaza, right? Like first make sure that the people have something to eat. But
stop killing. And it's amazing the parallels of the as David and Ann's second book, The Hidden Half of Nature, like the parallels between the soil microbiome and the gut microbiome, and how when we spray pesticides or herbicides or fertilizers and such on the soil or create a monoculture environment, the downstream, no pun intended, effects of all of those things and how it affects those things in many ways, without going into all of that right now, is very similar to the antibiotics in our body. And so we have to cultivate a diverse microbiome, going back to that point of the microbiome turning on brain development, even in utero and all along our life. And the gut-brain axis as like almost a pop psychology realization, finally, like that over the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, Zach Bush talks about it a lot, that the doctors are finally catching up to realizing that the gut matters, and that just sterilizing and antibiotic-filled bodies won't actually function well. So to create diverse ecologies in the land and in our bodies takes diverse ecologies going in our mouth.
And into the soil's mouth. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right,
So like, so if we have to create a diverse soil to create a diverse gut, to then create a diverse human being that has the capacity for that level of empathy or intellect or relationship.
And it's circular, because you have to have a human being who can think about planting diverse plants that will feed diverse different exudates, that will feed different bacterial communities in the soil, that will stop, killing, right?
So how do we get the nutrients back in the humans so that humans can put the nutrients back in the soil to keep that loop going? Yeah. I feel like the connection of the microbiome to other parts of the human is a important storyline for me as a chef, to help people start this work from a place of selfishness, like as in like that's my easier way in with most conventional societal people that aren't as obsessed with the soil as I am. Like, no, the way you eat changes your mood. Really, like you could feel less lethargic, less lazy, more alive if you change your diet. Oh, okay, it's not just about changing which cereal box you eat at noon as your first meal with conventional milk. No, it's actually about like eating whole fruits and vegetables, and like this is why those fermented foods or diverse fruits and vegetables directly cultivate and create a microbiome, which then enriches the rest of your body. And like, I'm not talking there about water cycle regeneration or salamander habitat or mycorrhizal fungi, that hopefully those farmers that they source from are practicing. It's just like, that's part of why I'm a chef, is actually like, if I can be an initiator or like a translator to let people know that what they put in them changes them, and that they could be better themselves, then maybe they'll want to change their diet and thus their sourcing and thus their relationship with the earth, even just from a place of just wanting to feel better in their own bodies. It's like, because I sometimes I get lost in like, no, like the root exudates potential of sequestering sugars for long-term carbon storage is so important. This is why cover crops matter. And people are like, okay, I support cover crops. Where do I sign the petition? It's like, oh no, okay, I went too deep in like that one. Let's go back to diversify your diet, to diversify your microbiome, to enrich your life. Yeah. Soil health, I guess, to break that down, I'm speaking to the camera. I'm also speaking to both of you all, and it's like, and you're my teacher in some way on soil health. So it's like, and I trust that both of you know probably a lot of what I'm saying. So I also like speak to the pupil of the camera in like, what is soil and what is health. And some of my students in culinary school, I take them through like, what is soil and dirt, like how to, like the denigration of soil into dirt is like a cultural phenomenon that's like a great gateway into like, oh, it's dirty,
right?
Like we've like the fact that what is on our boots, or what is like that we've lost our romance with the hidden half of nature. So like soil itself, and then what actually is healthy soil, have we lost our capacity? Do we still have an inherent capacity to smell, to witness? I mean, even kids come into my class, they're on vape pens and polyester clothing and eating laundry detergents, bounce sheets and artificial colognes and 3 different screens. And I mean, these poor 18-year-olds, like, they're trying their best, but like, and I show them pictures like light tan, clotted, tilled, desiccated dirt, and like living soil with like roots and worms coming out of it. And I'm like, which one do you think is healthier? And they at least know that, and I show them samples outside. And so it's like, maybe that's a good opening to turn it back to you, is like, how would you introduce people to soil or soil health as a way to like help it matter to them?
I have increasingly talked about, I started off with soil health because I was coming out of the healthcare field, right? Alternative holistic health. And so carbon was a big in for me. But I increasingly like to talk about the structural and functional integrity of soil. And then the word that I use is the soil sponge for that, or soil, spongy matrix, right, of healthy soil. So,
what is the structural and functional?
So when soil is in contact with diverse plants, basically, and has an alive, microbial community underground, and not just microbes, but all kinds of things, right? I think, things like voles and etc. are under, or snakes or anything that's digging holes and stuff.
Part of it.
So the substrate of a soil is just broken down rocks, right? Sand, silt, and clay. And I very often do a demonstration of a plate of flour to say this is like the equivalent of sand, silt, and clay that has not had any contact with life, right? And you take you can blow on it and it just blows away, right? So the wind blows, it blows away. you can poke a few holes in a cup and rain on it, and the water will run off the top, and you'll get drought because it doesn't soak in, just like if you've done any baking. But around the edge of the plate, you get a flood, right? And so, and that's basically what happens when soil doesn't have a spongy structural integrity to it, which means it doesn't have functional integrity. Because what is soil for? It's to hold rain, have space for plant roots, create a whole world underground for all the life underground. So it doesn't have any of that if it's just broken down rocks. But if you add life to flour, you get bread, right? And if you add life to soil, you get the soil sponge. And those are very similar the way that they function. So with a soil sponge, you suddenly have all of these pore spaces in there, and you also have not slimes and glues, as Elaine Ingham says, that are holding those little mineral particles into aggregated clumps, and then life moves through there. So first of all, when we aggregate, like if we clump together, there's more space over here, right? So that's true with soil. There's like spaces open up as it aggregates, even though it seems counterintuitive. But also it gets held together by mycorrhizal fungi and by plant roots and other little threads underground. And then you end up with something that's more like bread in structure. And if you blow on that, nothing happens, right? It just stays in place. But really key, if you rain on it, it soaks up the water. It goes down. It's stored, protected from evaporation down there with the plant roots. You're eliminating a lot of drought. You're creating a lot more drought resilience, let's put it that way. And you're creating a tremendous flood resilience because you don't have that runoff in the same way. And then that water is filtered through that nice, like, mineral rich filter, right? So like a big carbon filter, but even better because it's getting remineralized and turned back into spring water. And eventually it actually comes back up either through the sides into streams and rivers and ponds, etc. So it's sort of moving sideways through the landscape and coming up that way, or just in a low spot. It will come up as a spring and beautiful, drinkable, clean water. So, so that's the key, is like, how do we take those broken down rocks and turn them into something that is like alive and flexible and spongy and absorbs water, holds it in place, and that has, so it's like both the structure and function are improved. And that's when we talk about soil health. The problem with just saying soil health is health, even in humans, is really hard to define. But we can talk about, well, can this human walk and talk and think and and have a good time and reproduce and does this human have like what they need in order to function? They have all the functional, everything's connected. Your elbow bone is connected, right? So that's how I like to think about soil health. It's not, health is a very vague term, and when we talk about measuring soil health, there's so many different ideas about how to do that. But if you want to talk about, can you measure the structural integrity of the soil? Absolutely. You can say whether it breaks apart in water, whether it falls apart in wind, etc.
What its infiltration,
and
percolation
if you want to measure the function of soil, easy to say what that means. Okay.
I really like that. It brings me back to my perk tests in my ag school, where you would have like concentric rings in like metal. It's like a huge bullseye, and so you would put water in these rings and measure how fast it goes into the soil. And
and if it's on the surface, we call it an infiltration test. And when you do deeper layers, it would be a perk test.
Those there's measurements. There's many things swirling in my mind, so I'll do my best to organize. There's a point here about health. I feel like, to just go back to that term that I kind of asked you to define, and especially as a former medical practitioner, did you have a clinic, or like, I don't know your exact?
My license was in acupuncture and herbal medicine. And so I had a small clinic in Thetford, Vermont, with other practitioners in an old house. And did that for 22 years. But acupuncture is a very broad license, so I used it
Great.
talk to people mostly about like why they should buy like meat and milk and eggs from this farmer over here,
I have a friend
and why they shouldn't be on statins, and
Yeah.
why they shouldn't be eating canola oil, and all of that stuff.
Awesome. I love that. I have a friend who's an acupuncturist, and she is like a homeopath and an energy medicine practitioner, but she was also a 4-year acupuncturist. So I ask that both to like name that in the record, and to offer that query around like what is health, like is it a blood test, is it a LDL, is it a cholesterol, is it a blood pressure, like what is the modern world. I mean, this is like almost a Charles Eisenstein kind of point of like the reductionist age of separation, the like finding the metric that can be controlled and then regulated and then standardized and then like
and then create a drug that makes
yeah, exactly,
which is true also even with the microbiome.
Yeah.
Like now it's like patented this and that, and
or probiotics,
that's
as
what
if
I mean.
like
Yeah,
billions
right,
of 6 strains is
Right.
going to heal you from a Whole Foods
Right.
plastic bottle, like instead of direct connection to the living world through your breath, through the wild waters, through wild foods, through fermented foods. Soil for me is, there's a few things there. One is, my favorite is the rhizosphere, and introducing people to the rhizosphere, the space of the root. My plant and soil sciences instructor back at the University of Kentucky, where I got my sustainable agriculture degree, was a specialist on the rhizosphere, and he inspired me so much that I got several of his electron micrograph images of the rhizosphere printed in high quality and framed for my wall.
Nice.
Because it was just like the most exquisite like feeling to realize that the rhizosphere is happening like
right here,
all the time, like fractal of the most exquisite relationships. I mean, to break it down a little bit, we're talking about the space um, where the plant root becomes the soil. And so when the plants put their roots in, and we'll get to monocultures and diversities and the importance of that, but just the root of any plant, and where does it stop being itself? Where does soil contact it? And what is that liminal zone? And it's so, there's layers to it. The root hairs, the fine natures of it. There's like branching roots. We've seen that. Most of us know about the branching roots, but like it's so microscopic. And there's a relationship. I previously thought, plants are just down there just sucking up nutrients.
Right, and building themselves out of dirt.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a pretty common misconception, or it's not a misconception, it's a starting point of like, where are they really getting their nutrients from? There's plenty of studies that have been done, like you weigh the soil, you put a seed in it, you grow hundreds of pounds of squash from that one seed, say, or whatever the poundage is, and then you take it out, you shake all the dirt off, and you weigh the soil. It's almost exactly the same. Where did it come from? I mean, that's why I started our educational series here on light and water, and then if we had a topic on air, that there's so much to the photosynthetic Krebs cycle process that generates matter from the ethereal line of elements. But then to Earth, we're talking about a full ecosystem that's rapidly ongoing at really inconceivable numbers of microbiologies and diversities. I mean, like millions of species that are like unknown at this point. Just like the cosmos. I mean, that's why I love David's title of The Hidden Half of Nature. Like it's a fractal parallel of like, we don't know what's out in the solar system fully, and we really don't know what's beneath our feet, and it's so diverse. And that space, to go back just practically to that root hair, the space between that and the other life is in a constant relationship. And at the level of I think Elaine talks about it as like cookies and snacks, or sweets and sugars, or like something like that, to where how do they form relationship? Well, like if you were, I mean, one level, nutrients aren't just in soil. Like you don't just have a cobalt or a magnesium or a copper like floating around. It has to be part of the structural integrity of the soil. It has to be held within an aggregate. It has to be like bonded to a clay particle, like cation, anion. Like there's all of these ways that the minerals or nutrients themselves, but they're also just not on a sand particle or a clay particle as if it's just like a piece of sand with a calcium next to it. Like there's more complexity to it, and that's through the biology. That's through the living systems that are eating and shitting and having. I tell my students, and forgive me, the 18-year-olds that are in class, I'm like, have you seen the largest microbiological orgy of all time? Like the sex that is happening and they're like, oh, did Professor Hess just say orgy? And I apologize, maybe this is now a PG-13 rated podcast, but like to entrance people to like play their game into like these creatures are rapidly cycling life and then making it available to the plant in reciprocity. The plant though is giving back, and that's what I meant by Elaine saying cookies and snacks, is that like the plant is actually giving its energy to the soil in a balanced relationship, so much so that I've heard like 30 to 50% of their
even up to 60 of the sugars that they're making from photosynthesis are being used to feed life underground.
As in over half of the energy you're making for your life, like the church in their 1% tithing doesn't have any on the soil. Like 50%, I mean, sitting there receiving all the light, making all this glucose, it's not just to build their stems and build their fruits. They know where they're rooted, and they give that back. I mean, my teacher Lawrence Cole, he's a songwriter out in Port Townsend, Washington. I hope that you meet him and his beautiful wife Deanna one day. They've been sending me your newsletters for years, even though
really?
I'm subscribed to you, and I'll get your newsletter, and then I'll get Deanna forwarding me
Nice.
the newsletter 10 minutes later, being like, you have to read this. I'm like, I will. She's like, today. They're 80, and they're still vital. He was a professor or a massage therapist at Esalen, and now he holds grief circles and song circles and is an amazing elder. And Deanna goes along with him to these gatherings and helps and shares, and she's a deep admirer of your work. And they have a song about this. He had just taken, I think, one of your classes, or definitely Elaine's, but it was one of your all's, and they were talking about the soil sponge at breakfast, and they were getting so excited. And he looked out his window, and he just looked at the green plants, and he said, whenever you see green, you're seeing light being turned into sweetness.
Nice.
And there's like a second and third verse. I won't turn this into a song circle right now, but like that we're literally watching light get turned into sweetness. And that sweetness is given away into the darkness to then cultivate life
as
again.
energy, right? It's
Say
I mean,
more.
it's literal. I mean, it's that we're all running on sunlight energy. Right? I mean, we're all solar powered beings.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah. And that energy then feeds these creatures that then reproduce, metabolize, and then die often, and their bodies can be part of the nutrients that the plants absorb. And to go then one level deeper, and I'll turn it back to you, is like this nutrient density thing. I found it so magnificent that the roots themselves of the plants are not just putting out generic goo. So now that we know that there's microbiology on the root hair, right? And that nutrients have a complex way of holding themselves in the soil matrix. Well, then what is the plant giving out? Well, CO2 and H2O equals what? What's the photosynthesis? C6H12O6, glucose? Oh, well, they're just putting out sugar water? That's it?
No, it's unique to every plant, right?
It's unique to every plant, and my understanding is each plant can make different exudates depending on the type of microbiological community they want to cultivate around their root zone. What? Yeah, exactly. Depending on the nutrients that those microbiological organisms would be able to garner from the soil, so that they can like say like, oh, this species of mycorrhizal fungi is really great at harvesting copper and nickel. And I mean, we're anthropomorphizing this to some degree, but then this, I'm going to hold out on some of my bacterial exudates for the next hour and pump one in that helps that mycorrhizal go like.
And you might want to say what a mycorrhizal
It
fungus.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that it's a non-fruiting.
Right. So it doesn't make mushrooms.
Right. And so fungi are often seen of as like portobellos or shiitakes, or little white, like those are the fruiting bodies of mushrooms. Just like if you had an apple, that apple is not the entire tree. It's the fruiting body of the whole branch, leaf, root system.
Yeah.
And so there are certain fungal species. I mean, fungi is its own kingdom, so it's like I unfortunately don't know the full grasp of the kingdom, but the mycorrhizal are always subterranean and networking fungi species.
And I think what's really key is that they grow into, they actually form a bond, or sexual relationship, or whatever you want to call it, with the plant root. So, and they are living off of the exudates from living plants, whereas most of the ones that we see as fruiting bodies are living off of either saprophytic, so their food is dead and decomposing plants. So,
and would say that again. I mean, we're talking about the fungi, not just like eating the
sugars
that are exuded. These mycorrhizal will, and that's why I felt like your finger expressions was really important here. And for audio, it's like almost like prayer hands, like to where the mycorrhizal is actually inside the plant root, and there's like a direct physical touch connection. It's less of like a here's this on the table, I'll take that.
It becomes an extension of the plant root.
Yeah.
And what's really cool, and this goes back to Walter Jena. I learned this from one of the people I've worked closely with, who's an Australian soil scientist.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. So the mycorrhizes, they're tiny, right? But they are like one long cellular membrane.
Mm-hmm.
And a membrane is basically the most basic form of intelligence. So intelligence, if you think about it, starting from the membrane, is knowing what to take in, what you need, when, how much, and what to keep out or put out, let go of, and release, right? And this is true of us in our news media, in our friendships, in our how much stuff do we have in our refrigerator tonight?
What's your fridge membrane? What's your membrane?
So there are these, and another time we'll do the layers of intelligence, which is like a framework that I've been writing from and talking from. But it starts with that cellular membrane, and so the mycorrhizae, or the mycorrhizal fungi, depending on how you want to say it, it's like this whole long intelligent extension of the plant root that can say, oh, the plant needs this, and I need this too right now, because in our environment we're dealing with this, and this at this very moment. And so I'm going to get a little bit of copper, but I'm going to follow it with this much selenium, and then we're gonna let go of a little of that. So it's like very intelligently sorting and sourcing, not just what's needed, but when and how much, etc. Which is so similar to what an intelligent grazing animal does. The work of Fred Provenza, right? Which the two books, Nourishment by Fred Provenza and The Dorito Effect by Mark somebody, which is like about Fred Provenza's work. Really highly recommend both of those books. But and it's what children have been found to do in these experiments, where they put kids with a table of 40 different things of totally bizarre foods, and every kid ate a slightly different thing, in different order and what they needed, and they all got healthier and healthier and healthier. And
that might be worth pausing on Fred's work and the comparison there of the soil microbiome. We're speaking to the intelligence of it. This is one of my favorite ways of encouraging people to care, is the awe. I tried for so many years in telling people statistics about the awfulness of the world, and like fear is not a motivating
Nope.
energy. It's a paralyzing energy. That's part of the intentional psychology of the last many years. Is the great COVID experiment of how can we paralyze and terrify population to do what we want. So how do we then inspire and shift? And for me, the word is like enchant. Like I hope in some way for anyone like listening to this that you're like, wow, the soil is awesome. I had no idea. This is so beautiful. Like then like just like from that energy the past 5 seconds, like people are excited. So all of that is to say like Fred's work and that comparison just for another moment, like how do you, will you share a little bit more on like his basic thesis just in then your comparison to the microbiome and its intentionality there.
And this does get into that, layers of intelligence, right? Sure. So in the same way we talked about the a membrane has that layer of intelligence, that Fred's work showed that grazing animals, when they were given a very wide buffet, right, of things to choose from, and when they were raised in family groupings where things could be taught from generation to generation. And when they had a chance to sort of experiment, etc. It's not just like all animals know this stuff, right? But under the conditions that would be like more natural conditions, that grazing animals would take, they would eat things that normally we would consider, that's poisonous for an animal. But they would eat something else right before it that would neutralize the poison, or they would eat something right afterwards that would help balance it out. Or so it's this like,
or eat it at a dosage that made it not harmful.
Exactly. And it's so similar when we look at and this is your purview, but like when we look at how food is laid out and what is a palate cleanser and why do we eat bitter things here and why do we like sweet things there, and and why do these things taste good together, and it's because we actually have that intelligence. But most of us haven't had a chance to really experience it. And the flavor industry, which is that book, the Dorito effect. The flavor industry has purposefully hijacked that so that we don't we think we're getting nutrients that we're not getting, and so then since our body knows we're not satisfied, but our mouth says, oh, this is great, I'm getting all of this, whatever, we'll keep eating and eating and eating and eating, feeling satisfied but not feeling satisfied.
That's an important transition into nutrient density and nutrient depletion. I'll say first that Fred did that work of grazing animals intelligently, and I'm sure you have heard of this before, like know what to eat when. I think my first experience of that was a third trimester, pregnant heifer eating a lot of raspberry leaf. And I was like, there's a whole field of grass here, honey. Like, why are you in the brambles? She's like, I'm preparing to give birth and this is my medicine. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, these aren't stupid creatures that I have to cage in regeneratively. Which is what brought me to Daniel Firth Griffith's work. And have you heard of him?
No. I mean, I've heard his name, but I don't know.
Okay, this is really exciting. I would love, he would definitely be a person at this table right now. He's, my teacher, but also my like friend, and he's only 31 years old as well. And he's a grazer in Virginia, has 450 acres with his wonderful wife, Morgan, and their 3 kids. And their kids are adorable. I went down there for a ceremonial slaughter class. Daniel's been effectively canceled by a variety of regenerative organizations because he's speaking to the shallowness and the lack of integrity that certain groups hold, without naming names or going into that right now. In particular, the way he speaks to herd behavior and animal management, and how separating bulls and rams from their families and separating moms from their kids, of course, and not allowing maternal clans to form. I think he at times will let them out on 100 acres for weeks. He doesn't keep them in tight little things, and he doesn't have the bulls over here and the moms over here and the kids over here. Like, and that was very intentional for him. And Fred wrote the introduction to Daniel's most recent book.
What's it called?
Stag Time. He's paused and he got like such a reaction to that book because of his like, yeah, I mean, Savory Institute his and a lot of other people, White Oak Pastures, like um, uh, Force of Nature Meats. Like he's spoken at some of these gatherings and said like, y'all, we can do better. Like, are we really? I mean, in his podcast, he speaks to like, do we really want to have a guaranteed hanging weight size of a registered Black Angus be the only required breed and size that Force of Nature will take twice a month, that you have to sign up for every month for years before you become a supplier to them? And is that a regenerative relationship? Or are you just tracking like a particular carbon metric that this fancy tool did in this one pasture, and that's what caused you? Like, we have to regenerate our relationships with our animals, with ourselves, and see these things and be willing to evolve through them. And so Daniel's so fiery and so intelligent and so inspiring to me, and I bring him up because of like learning from the relationships of the animals themselves, just like the soil microbiology can teach us based on what we see coming up in the land, thus how the soil can be tended. Because this isn't like a resort to pastoralism, hunter-gatherer, like let's not put fences up for our animals, let's just let them do whatever we want. But there's a like proper check-in, I think, that we're having on like how to be effective tenders and stewards. And when we're only talking about metrics of soil health and not the larger relationship of how the animals or the plants are placed. Because if a farm that's a cabbage farm just grows 1,000 acres of cabbage and does a cover crop, like we're not changing like our communities, our microbiomes that much.
Like people often talk about crop rotation as like a way to have soil health, and crop rotation is really not the same thing as having diverse 16 different or 32 or 64 different things growing all at once.
But tomatoes this year and kale next year and tomatoes next year and kale next year is not creating the exudate structure that builds that matrix that you're talking about.
Well, right, because if you only, it's like saying, well, this year we're just feeding the kids Skittles at school, and next year we're going to feed them all chicken, and next year we're going to feed them, cucumbers. Like that does not create healthy children, right? So
that's a good way. And we think about that with the soil, like if not only can different plants do different exudates, but we need many different types of plants to do many different types of exudates. And that's also how the earth formed. I mean, it's amazing that we're like somehow attempting to justify a monoculture agriculture system, which is maybe where we go next, is that Dorito effect and the nutrient depletion. Because soil health can be destroyed by many factors, and its most common factors are the soil disturbance, and usually mechanical and then chemical disturbance. And so it's like we could discuss all the different ways that soil gets destroyed, and that then leads to nutrient depletion. So what creates nutrient density is the intact soil. But I'm thinking more about what you spoke earlier about your meal being like satisfying from it being small, and that we could have a experience with food that isn't being manipulated by natural flavors and artificial hacks, because the companies that are doing that work want us to eat more, and we're eating vapid, nutrient depleted food. The food industry has a complex business model because people can only put so much in their face. Women can buy a 25th or a 95th pair of shoes, but you can only buy so many meals in a day to eat. So the way to engineer around that is to create food that doesn't actually satisfy you and doesn't have nutrients in it, so that your body's like, wait, I need to eat more because I'm still depleted.
And it's so interesting what we're talking about is actually a form of addiction, right? That it's creating an addiction of feeling like this thing's going to satisfy me because it has all of the right flavor profile,
Yeah.
but I don't feel satisfied in the end, and then
Mm.
I want more.
Mm. How do we shift into teaching people, like Daniel Griffith spoke about how his meat should really be like $30 a pound, like, and most people may need to eat like half or a third of his meat, that even organic meat, because based on, I'm not sure if he actually did the testing, but like you only need that much meat to get the nutrients that you would have needed from a larger portion of it. And so there's a real like bridge there around how our care for the soil and the land directly creates the acquisition of those nutrients in that flesh. I mean, it's an
Yeah,
incredible
and
bridge.
also, just speaking of like the price of things, I'm forgetting his name. He's a Northeast farmer, Ridge Shin.
Okay.
One of his slides, I think this is his slide. I've seen it in his shows anyway. His talks. He says, an ounce of grass-fed meat costs X, and an ounce of a Snickers bar, it's like an ounce per ounce. A Snickers bar is way more expensive than grass-fed meat, but we don't think anything about paying that, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of when we think about what we're getting out of it, and people complain, oh, like, I can't buy that; it's too expensive, and yet they no problem going back.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and we were both talking actually about these meals that we'd had recently, two different restaurants. Mine was in England, and and it was at the place one I had was like a roast beef dinner that I had one week for for like Sunday dinner, and then the next week I happened to be in that neighborhood at like sort of late breakfast time, and I was like, and they're a place that usually needs a reservation, just like the place you were at, and I see like they're empty, and I'm like, are you serving yet? And then I had like a roast beef dinner for basically for breakfast the next week.
Nice.
But I ended up, what I noticed, especially when I was sitting by myself there, not with friends, I'm usually a really fast eater, and I just ate it slowly and it wasn't a huge portion. I was not at all trying to slow down. It was just like every bite was so satisfying and had so much flavor profile and was satisfying so many aspects of my being that I didn't feel like I had to take another bite right afterwards. Because I think that's that thing, that Dorito effect is like, I'm like eating one, oh, I want another one. Now I want the other one next. And now I'm taking a handful and shoving them in my face because there's some part of me that's really desperate to get that, tomato, pepper, whatever flavor.
Yeah.
That is not real.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I'd take a bite of it and then I'd feel like satisfied for a few minutes before I felt like, okay, now I'm ready for another bite.
Because your body's actually receiving those nutrients.
It's actually getting it. Yeah.
Was that your experience?
That was my experience. So our reservation began at 7:45 last night, and we weren't checking the time. We were just talking and enjoying our food, and we left at 10:20.
Yeah.
But we were eating the entire time.
Yeah.
There wasn't much time in between the courses. It was like we were just being so intentional about the bite that we took that it just was a very long time to finish our plates.
Yeah, and this restaurant I was at, they had like 2-hour seatings, and I after like an hour and a half, because I was there by myself, I was feeling a little guilty that like I'm taking up a spot because it's sort of very highly regarded place that people are waiting to go to, and they're like they were like they didn't even bring me my check, and then I'm like, all right, I guess I'll write in my journal for a while and hang out and like so
it's really special to me to hear this, because part of my work is really designing food experiences that slow people down, and that can only be paired with the food that can somatically, physiologically slow people down. If we're feeding people vapid food, they feel like they have to put more in their face. So how do we bridge that like practice of intentional mindful eating? I mean, like Thich Nhat Hanh, I'm reading a book on his called Mindful Eating. Like, I mean, there's real beautiful, multi-dimensional, spiritual, all religions and all cultures. I mean, this is part of like the research work I want to do in the coming years, have rituals around their food to like slow us down, to like to breathe. And now modern science is finding that like the condition of our nervous system while we eat can help, it does determine our digestion. And so if we're stressed, we don't digest, which means we're not actually metabolizing the nutrients that are in the food. So then this slowness or this intentionality of an eating practice is a net win for all involved, because you're actually digesting better. You're not constricted or bloating or missing out on it. I mean, if the body's stressed, like, it doesn't need to digest, it needs to run or fight or worry. But if it's relaxed and like, yeah, there's not a tiger coming up behind me, there's not Mongols coming across this hill, like, I'm gonna be at this table and I'm gonna really, then the body's like, oh yeah, we're gonna put all of our energy towards fully receiving this food and then like taking it where it needs to go. And the fact that you all did that with a meal that you were kind of unexpectedly long in, and that the portions were small and still satisfying, brings us back to soil amazingly. In that the soil that we spoke to earlier, that has that sophisticated matrix, that has a sponge. I missed talking about pore space earlier and why that's so important. I won't go into that right now, but just like the water and the air and the downstream watersheds. I mean, people like, I teach my students, I will say this, 50% of soil is the matter. You know, this is generic, it's very generalized, but, and 50% is air and water. Like, what do you mean? Like, the ground is solid, right? No, we need pore space. Why do we need holes in our soil? What does that do? Well, do you think everybody down there doesn't need to breathe too?
Right. And it's climate control. Right. And it's insulation too, right? So having that pore space, it's like having a blanket or a parka or a nice sweater. So it's like it doesn't freeze as fast, it doesn't get hot as fast. So it's literally climate control, you know, for life underground. Like.
And then where do you think,
why are we sitting in this little pore space between the apple trees, right?
Life happens in the space between. And then where do you think the water in the rivers come from? Like, it's not, if it hasn't rained in a while, how is there still water moving through a landscape?
Right. Peter Donovan likes to talk about how, like, in our high school textbooks, it's like the water evaporates from the ocean and this cloud goes over and it rains in the river and the lake, you know, and it's like, no, actually that's not. Like,
it rains on land, which like is a sponge that, you know, properly regulates the flow of it. I mean, I think about that being from California and just how, I mean, we do have rivers that flow year round, and it's still magical to go to. I went to Yosemite last year for the first time, and the experience of going to a river at 10,000 feet after it hasn't rained for months and seeing it rushing, and just knowing that that's pore space in healthy soils, like that healthy soils regulate our rivers and our water systems, which is a whole other fun.
We got many of these to do.
Sure. I'm bringing that back to pore space to realize that we're the condition of the soil, the health and integrity of it, you know, and it not being tilled, ripped, massacred. Like, once I teach my students about soil health, then we go into like, well, how is soil currently treated? Like, if you loved a woman and then watched another woman get like beaten, you would like stop that. Like, oh my gosh, like, once you know how precious the mother's breast, the mother's body is, watching it be ripped apart and massacred and poisoned, like, just repeatedly on tens of millions of acres daily, like, it just, you know, it rips my heart open. So then we have this soil. If we have the beauty of the soil, now linking that to nutrient density and realizing that all of those microbiological and rhizosphere interactions that we talked about then directly correlate to the plants being able to have a greater bank to pull nutrients from. This is like where, you know, asking Dan Kittredge or like some of these other folks that have a little bit more of the science on, like, I don't have this microbiology equals these polyphenols, you know, in my.
I don't either.
Okay, great.
But I'm gonna change the metaphor just slightly.
Please.
It's not that there's a greater bank.
Okay.
right? At least Elaine Ingham would say that most places in the world, some people disagree, like Australia probably doesn't have the same nutrients, right? But minerals. But most places, the bank has the same amount of money in it. But how many
tellers,
how many bank tellers, how many runners, how many bank robbers, how many ATM machines or whatever, how many access points are there? Because you could have a bank that has tons of money in it and no way to get at it. And that's what most of our soils are.
Does that make sense? Because the bank is the minerals. You know, sand, silt, and clay. My understanding of it is that those are only differentiated by their diameter.
Right.
So you could have the
shape. Yeah.
You could have silica clay. You could have silica sand, silica silt, like and quartz, etc. So with those minerals, who's actually eating them or working with them or
breaking down? It's like we need the enzymes, right? That comes from life that can break those down into and turn them into something, including turning them into their own bodies, right? That then, you know, like if I ate you, I would get the minerals that were in you, and I would get the water that's in you too. So there's like water made available under the soil and minerals made available when each time something eats something else.
By the cycling.
And we're supposed to be doing that here, but we poop in toilets and it goes into the water system, which was like, wait a minute, who decided on that? But in the ground and even above ground, like for most other life, unless you have a dog that poops in the toilet, but for most other life, it's like it's all being it's all being made available, because while we're walking around in these membranes that we're in, it's only a certain amount is available, right? But if something eats you, then all of it becomes available, right? But every time you eat something, you're also making something available. So.
And those tellers are the microbiology themselves, making all of those minerals available.
So what do you want it in ones? You want it in fives? You want
How do you want all of your nutrients? How can I? But if you walked into a bank, or if like you planted a bunch of crops and there's one teller available, like you're not going to get much as the plant to make yourself from.
Or if somebody comes along and puts on like a bunch of nitrogen fertilizer, it's like saying, hey, forget about all that money. I got some cryptocurrency, and let me tell you, this is going to be worth $1 billion. And, you know, like it's not even like the. I mean, now we're getting weird because maybe crypto's good. I don't know.
Yeah, but we're not commenting on the validity of artificial other currencies. Sure.
Right. But yeah, I mean, we could go a long way. We could talk about local currencies.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's another thing that I think is really important to talk about, because I know you guys have somewhat limited time, so maybe you're captive forever now. No, okay. Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying.
Well, over nitrification of the land and how it creates downstream effects is a separate conversation. What were you about to go to?
No, well, I think it's important to talk about, because I've been experiencing this like crazily from having switched from buying at one farm to another. I had a tomato from Sweetland Farm, where I'm now buying from. And I cut it in half 3 days ago and said to my son, who was taking care of my dog, here's a tomato to have with this food that you're about to eat. And he was dealing with some other issue and didn't eat it. And I came back 3 days later and it wasn't moldy. Or I have, you know, it was, or lettuce that from Sweetland that I've had for 3 weeks and it's still crunchy and delicious. What that is, and this is like John Kempf's work.
Yeah.
That when a plant has enough life underground to get it the nutrients that it needs in the way that it needs, it is resistant against mold, mildew, viruses, chewing insects, you know, all kinds of things. And if we eat those plants, we're probably a lot less likely to get athlete's foot or get Lyme disease or get, you know, whatever, because we're all living in the same world here, right? It's like
that's a big one.
So one of the ways you can tell whether food is nutrient dense, if it's from, like, I mean, some food is not going to rot because it's covered with wax or something, right? Or it's been irradiated, but I'm not talking about that. Yeah. But if you're like shopping at different farms and you go and you buy tomatoes from all the farms on one day, or cucumbers, the slimy cucumbers.
Oh,
Damn,
my
you know,
word.
like I bought it yesterday, and it's like a soup inside of this plastic bag that it came in, right? So you just buy things from like 5 farms on one day, same thing.
Yeah.
And leave them out on the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have like eggplants from like 2 weeks ago that had like nice, firm, beautiful, just been sitting there on the counter, no refrigeration needed.
And we want to pick and eat things as close to freshness as possible.
I know, but if you're me and you're like a food hoarder because your father and stepfather were refugees from war, you know, like you're like
I got to keep enough around.
Yeah.
And I want to store it. And so you're directly linking the longevity of produce to its nutrient density.
Right. And what does that mean? If we're eating things that are resistant to all of those diseases, all of those pathogens, we're probably going to have more longevity ourselves.
Particularly because this topic of nutrient density is contrasted to nutrient depletion. And we're living amidst a population that is chronically, silently, or unknowingly, deeply nutrient depleted. I mean, I think my understanding of the statistics is like 95% of people are magnesium depleted, 99 maybe. You know, I mean, and where does magnesium previously come from? You know, the soil.
Not a feast day. There is. It's delicious.
I need to find somebody who does video edits. I don't know how to do video edits.
No, this is great. This is real life. People pull up and they want food.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? And they need a bathroom. We were just talking about this.
We just needed a bathroom. Well, she's gonna go poop in water. Yeah. We should have just turned the camera on her. Thank you, Hunter. Let me know if you need anything. That's like when we started with talking about helping people be selfish. Like, I want people to feel better based on their microbiome. I want them to know that they can feed themselves better so that they feel better. Like, if you're not willing to even feel better, exit stage left. You know, like in some ways, like if I can't even get you there, okay. Then we go to like the grandiose of like we can heal the whole earth through better food systems. What are human beings doing on the earth's body at scale besides agriculture? I mean, there's urbanization and there's forestry, but like, you know, agriculture is a pretty big part of how we're physically managing the ecologies of the earth. So like we could go grandiose with like, let's heal our global ecologies through regenerating food systems, returning to largely indigenous styles of agroforestry, etc. But then there's this middle way of healing the planetary and the personal through food, which is the epidemic of chronic illnesses. And I just wonder about you speaking to this and all the things you just named. It's not just like, oh, my tomato was grown well and I won't get as many molds because the plant's resisting mold. There's like a practicality to that I appreciate you like naming. And but you mentioned Lyme. You know, I've had 2 deer ticks bite me this summer very shortly, and I do tick checks constantly, and we're kind of out of that season right now. But like, there's a larger chronic disease, autoimmune, metabolic, neurodegenerative, that it feels like, without overgeneralizing, that a lot of it is, I mean, there's lifestyle factors, there's circadian rhythm, there's dehydration, there's EMF pollution, but amidst all of that, there's complete nutrient depletion from people eating a vapid, chemically tainted monoculture diet of a very small number of plants that are grown in absolutely terrible ways that don't have much nutrients in them. Right. Like, that's my middle point in many ways between this personal and planetary journey, is like, it's not just about feeling good in that day and not being bloated. It's about building a body that doesn't break down. Right. Just like we built that tomato that didn't break down.
Can I interject a question here?
Please.
I mean, I don't maybe it's more an observation.
No, I'm grateful that you're here, man.
But I guess I wonder, where does the philosophical question of what is an actual healthy human, where does it fit into our journey here of healing ourselves and the planet? Do we do that? Does it have to happen first? We have to like come up with an idea of what a healthy human looks like in order to get there, or does it happen concurrently? Or do we only get there when we feel like we've stumbled along in the right enough-ish way, and then like, oh, we're actually pretty healthy now, or all of them at once?
Yeah, I think there's a part is an issue of like the shifting baselines thing, right?
Right.
And I very often give this example of, different children that I've known, and most of the young children that I know now are incredibly unhealthy. I know several children close to me who only poop once a week with laxatives, and that's been through their whole lives.
Yeah. Well, I can think anecdotally. Right. My mom was a fourth grade teacher, and when she started 20 years ago, you knew the one kid in the grade who was allergic to nuts. Then by the time she finished 5 years ago, there were multiple kids per classroom.
Right.
So
I mean, multiple different allergies.
Anecdotal, but I mean that's a pretty clear thing to see. That like clearly something is shifting there.
Yeah. So then I have a niece who my sister had trouble getting pregnant and shifted to a like totally like nutrient dense, organic, etc.
Fertility.
Yeah, fertility is a huge other subject, right? But shifted her diet, and she's a very health oriented person to begin with, and was able to get pregnant, had this baby, and then did that kind of like primal mom thing of like, there was like cilantro and garlic and beans and this and liver and whatever, like on on the high chair, right? Like
for the child, you mean?
For the child,
they were
not just for
like
her.
free choice
Of like all kinds of things you would never think. And my sister's an amazing cook.
Yeah.
And so there's always lots of those ingredients around. She would just like put them out. And my niece like ate most of them, like things that you would never think of a 1-year-old or a 6-month, whatever, like tiny toddler eating these things. And I always tell the story. It's like, the first time I ate an organic banana, I was like, oh, that's what a banana tastes like, right? Or strawberry, whatever. And it's like, that's the response that I have to my niece. It's like, oh, that's what a child, that's right. They're smart as hell. They're having fun all the time. They're like totally engaged. They're not like breaking down and freaking out. And she's like very, very emotionally regulated. Of course she gets upset like we all do, right? And she expresses it.
Yeah.
But not in that way. Like she's very generous. She's like, do you want some of this?
But the reactivity of children these days directly linked to all kinds of food dyes and nutrient depletion. I mean, it's we can watch this in our youth.
Yeah.
Being and the troubling thing to this, I mean, which in some ways answers some of your question, Matt, is Stephanie Seneff's Toxic Legacy book about, she uses the word diabolical in there so many times. It's not an accident. The multi-generational effects of glyphosate are just appearing. That we're talking, like she said, that the worst effects are the third generation from initial exposure.
Wow.
And we're talking, I call it a genetic degradation project.
Right.
That this is a multi-generational chemical assault on the entire population with the most common water-soluble chemical on Earth.
And the sad thing is that it's like, well, maybe humans should just go away, but it's affecting all of life, right? So it's not just humans. It's frogs, it's fish, it's birds, it's everything.
And so I'm on the like Zach Bush tent of like, I don't play the like humans as a cancer, which then we have to nuance what cancer really is. But like humans are the keystone. Like we're here to tend this sacred Gaian jewel. Like let's go. Like this is our duty. So then how do we get there? Like if Manhattan wants to go underwater, like I'm sorry, but like humans will continue. Like it, And so how do we continue, and who are we as we continue, and who we I want to support as many people as possible raising nutrient dense children, nutrient dense wombs to create those children, nutrient dense semen, which is a whole other thing to talk about with men. Men get one moment, one swimmer that's packed with supposedly half of the process. Of course, the woman has to have 9 months and a whole birthing process to create the being and going through the vaginal microbiome and such. But for the man to actually generate that semen and what minerals he has in his body, he can code a nutrient depleted child with nutrient depleted seed. So like the fertility question and the youth question and like caring for our babies, just like I saw someone post yesterday, if the treatment of children in Gaza isn't our rock bottom, like what are we going toward? Like when does this stop? Like if caring for our children aren't the place where we begin, if you don't want to have a child that's going to be erratic and all of these other things because of all of these downstream, like it's up to parents. I mean, in many ways, I wish we could like coach parents who want to be parents years in advance to detoxify their organ systems, to remove the heavy metals from them, to pull glyphosate out of their tissues, to rebuild their gonads and their ovaries, to bring back nutrient dense foods, so that then in the consummation, insemination, conception moment, it is actually a holy union of nutrients that are meant to pair to create that child. And my brother is unfortunately infertile, and they don't know why, and he's had a lot of medical tests and surgeries and still not fixed. And sometimes I'm like, do you need an iPad and a phone on your lap all the time with Bluetooth and 5G on the whole time? Like, does it, you're a conspiracy theorist, or like there's fertility and where it comes from and how it's built over time is so powerful to not have a children of men scenario. And like we need a population that's vital. That's why the conversations on IVF that have been happening over the last few years of like the right, the left, like give money to birthing clinics, give money to, no, we can't do like God, or like we're missing where fertility comes from, what creates fertile beings, and what that none of. I sometimes read these like IVF, like headlines in the Guardian or the Times or the Journal, and I never see anyone ask, why are people going infertile?
But I mean, it's not like that hasn't been in the news too. It's just like they're not connecting the dots, right? Because you have stuff in the news all the time about like frogs are being born with like one leg or this or that, or like
like fertility. You were on a tip, and I appreciate like Matt, because that's the question that we can ask as we go through this. Like, what does it really mean to be a human? Like, and that's like, where's people's inroad for me? I'm always like, how do you want to shift? Is it just shifting your salad dressings? Is it adding fermented foods? Is it getting to know your farmer? Is it healing an autoimmune condition or a fertility issue? Like, there's so many inroads to this.
All right, so now I'm gonna push a little bit, okay? Because I have friends and family who have had to quit their jobs because their children are so like off the wall and whatever, and who have lots of bottles of Febreze and food dyes and this and that, and I've given them the research, we've had the talks, etc. Like this, like the kids, they haven't even like brought them in to get tested for celiac, nothing, right? And it's because they're overwhelmed. And just so that I'm not being a hypocrite, the other day, these great farmers made me a nice meal, but it was very small, and I hadn't had lunch, and it was like a, too small of a meal for what I needed. And I like left their farm kitchen and like went to McDonald's, because I was like starving. I was, it was right there. I knew where it was cheap, etc. So I think that there are social forces and addictions, etc., that and also just the ease and the this and the that, that even those of us working in it, I mean, some of our great big soil health leaders are dying of horrible diseases and of clearly have metabolic issues,
Absolutely.
and they go give a talk and then drink huge liter of soda or whatever, and it's not, and I don't feel like I can criticize them because I have addictions too, right? I have those places where I, like, one part of me that's just like desperately hungry or whatever. It's like, just get me some food,
Yeah. Yeah.
So having worked as a healthcare provider for years, that thing of changing your diet is not a small ask.
No.
And I don't know why. Even for myself, I don't really understand why. So I think that's like
it's a huge code to crack, but it's not like a code that cracks and you figure it out. Like, there's not a universal process. This is why I respect my partner's work so much. She's also in the healthcare field, only a decade, but like, she's a nutritionist and works one-on-one with clients around these kinds of things. And there's something to like rhythm for me of like, I've been like learning how to help people feel better. Like, they have to do it long enough to experience a change, and not be hard on themselves when they may have a lapse. The diet is not like a shopping list and then you have the right things. It's not a recipe book. It's not a rules to follow. It's a very complex, I would say, multi-dimensional aspect of a human's life.
And there's all kinds of cultural and this and social,
financial access, cultural meals and preferences,
food deserts, right?
Yeah,
not just financial access, but access at all.
It's not even around or near you.
Yeah, I've had long distance patients where I've like said, I really suggest switching to organic food, and they're like, I can't even get an organic apple. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah. I would have to drive 40 miles to another town or something like that. So there's so much more to it that really makes it delicate of a option. It still feels like, if people can be nuanced and begin the journey, and if they're willing, meet them where they're at and gracefully walk that with them. Because, and then if people don't want to change that, like, that's not up to me. Like, I'm like, shaming or blaming or guilting.
No, and I'm bringing it up, not saying that you're shaming or blaming, but like, it's a really interesting. Yeah, we all have.
I definitely.
But it's a really interesting question as to why even many of us who know what we should be eating can't walk that walk all the time. And I know one interesting thing for me, like, especially early in the journey, when I would eat well, I would feel so much energy that it was uncomfortable. And I would feel like I need to go eat a lot of sugar or something to like tamp this down, or eat whatever, like,
or drink a beer
or something, right? Yeah.
The like stimulant.
And it was like really uncomfortable to feel like that much better and alive. Yeah.
Which is
like, so what's that?
That is the psycho-spiritual crisis of our times, is that we don't know how to be fully alive. Like, the question of what is it to be fully human. Like, there, especially on a planet, this might, we're not talking about soil health, but like a planet that could be potentially shifting vibrations, or that if the Earth is alive, if the Earth is going through a part of the galaxy, like, there's many things to say about this planet at this moment. The prophetic nature of, from Quetzalcoatl to the Hopi rainbow prophecy, like, the amount of cultures, I forget the ones in Colombia with the white attire, or the ones in Kenya, like the Maasai, like, people. It's a rather unique moment to be on Earth, and I say all that because I believe that the Earth and this world is an energetic process. It's not a news, rational, legal, financial, social. We know the Schumann resonance, of the Earth is a gigahertz that we can measure and feel. We can measure an EKG, like, is measuring something of the heart, like the Heart Math Institute. We know that the heart is putting out a field. So, like, when we just crack into the multidimensional nature of what it means to be alive, it then goes into the need for other practices to be alive than eating, shitting, drinking water, sleeping, raising your kids. Like it
I forgot
means
about making children.
making children, not just feeding them. Yeah. Like you have to maybe move your body. Like exercise and is so relegated into like bro gym culture when like we need more functional movement and strength training for people of all ages, like more muscle mass in our populations, so that then we're actually able to do real things.
And I think actually
meditation, movement, qigong, like anyway.
I think that you're touching on something there that speaks to my experience, because I was raised in like hippie schools that had no gym classes.
Yeah.
Right. So I was not.
And that was for the athletes, maybe.
No, I mean there were no athletes.
There were no athletes.
Okay. These were really like
really hippie schools.
They were either hippie schools or I was bussed into the like the Boston ghetto in Dorchester and Roxbury to be like the white kid in the experimental black school with like black male teachers from either from Dorchester and Roxbury or from various places in Africa. Wow. So yeah, very, very non-traditional education, which has served me well. But I didn't get gym class or sports, and so I think that if you haven't been trained to run fast and have fun, right? Then what do you do when you feel more energy?
Yeah.
Right. And if your body doesn't have the muscle mass or whatever to do something with it, of course you feel bad when you feel more energy. Of course you need to slow that down. So the strength training thing is really interesting, because my younger son is becoming an electrician, and so he started going to like Patriot Fitness, this huge American flag and like heavy metal music playing in West Lebanon. And he's like, Mom, you gotta go to the gym with me, because he doesn't want to injure himself. He's just starting to become an electrician. And I always feel like, lifting weights feels good. It feels so good.
If you do it in the right way at the right times, like,
and you have heavy metal music.
And you have heavy metal music playing. I mean,
and I'm like so out of place there that I'm like totally like if I go to like a regular gym and there's like like sort of
John Mayer,
the gym, exactly, right? Then I'm like, oh god, that person's a little more fit. I'm like,
you're so
these guys are like, and I'm like, like I'm not you, so I'm just me.
You feel good being you there.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's like a total aside, but it's been a body weight calisthenics process of just like doing push-ups at home or doing pull-ups on a tree or something like that. I mean, that takes motivation. Like there's another level to this of a population that's being persistently paralyzed by fear, by news cycles, by legitimate, like not just like it's in their mind. I mean, the raids in California on farms, like the amount of things that are keeping people paralyzed is a very real thing. I'm not meant to discount that, but how have populations lived throughout all kinds of failing empires and still gotten up every day to move their body, to train themselves to be alive in this time? It feels like it's not just a crisis of diet or autoimmune conditions. It's a crisis of being human. Like, what is guiding us to be human? Like, where do people get their mentorship, their eldership? And because we live in a culture that's largely divorced from intergenerational land bases and culture and song, and that's the larger project of soil health and nutrient density.
But also they weren't getting up. They weren't getting up and moving their body to train themselves. They were getting up and moving their body because there was work to be done. Right. And they were growing the food, or they were moving the animals, or they were hiking up into the mountains, or they were whatever.
It wasn't a sedentary, urbanized lifestyle. Right. It was a functional form of exercise.
But it was also completely and utterly integrated with what needed to be done that day. Right.
Yeah, my friend is incredibly buff because he is a prescribed burn manager in California. So he goes through the forest every day, trimming trees, building burn piles, taking down trees, bucking logs, setting fires, and then on his other days, grazing animals, moving fence. And then I'm like, how did you get so buff, man? You look so great. And he's like, I'm working.
He's got to connect with the gully stuffing thing.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay,
we'll talk about that.
I see your hat. Yeah.
Yeah, the Brock.
I've had Brock on twice recently. Yeah.
People keep sending me that, and I'm like, I've seen it. Yeah, so, No, I feel like that's a really good point to kind of close on. I mean, I don't. We're at 6 o'clock. Um, it's just like this is a larger project about how to feel alive again. Like I want soil health not just for the mycorrhizal's sake. I want nutrient density not just for people to have less degenerative illnesses that could be prevented by that, but this links to a revitalization of all life.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about this planet and our bodies like being more alive. Like that's the most simple metric. Like how is the soil more alive and healthy and its functional structural matrix? How is the food more alive? How are our bodies, our brains, our hearts, and then how are our communities? And
Yeah.
like that's within a culture that is fixated on killing the life in the soil, radiating the food with new peels and labels and all these things, and then the culture as a whole. I mean,
but also ironically fixated on health, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like going to the gym and this,
Or vaccines as an example of like a fixation on health. Not to go into that topic, where that's not my like specialty, but like there's this like you can only be healthy if you
Right.
have all of these vaccines
Yeah.
given to a child at this 1 day old.
Yeah.
It's like that's a fixation on health that
Right.
is disconnected and disembodied. And so there's a health for sanitization of produce and sanitization of the fields. Like they're wanting to keep the field healthy by tilling it all the time or
The
something.
status quo thrives on paradox, I think.
It does.
Because then you're in this state of paralysis, right?
Yeah.
If you exist in a paradox, you can't move. And in a way, that's a lucrative place to be kept in by certain people and groups.
And
you want alive enough to buy stuff, but dead enough to not do anything functional and productive. Yeah. I mean, that's also scary.
In my book, The Ecology of Care, I talk about the sterile paradigm where we kill off everything that doesn't fit or that's an enemy or whatever, versus the fertile paradigm of health for people and land and soil, etc., which is like working within the community that like everything's feeding each other and working together. So
wow, I haven't read your book, to be honest.
So, okay.
Sterile and fertile, that's a really great way to elucidate what
we also sometimes talk about the biotic climate, where like biology is making weather and temperature and rain and clouds, etc., versus the like antibiotic climate where it's like everything is like regulated and and that the land is so sterilized that that it can't actually produce all of the particles that water needs to condense on to make a cloud to create rain, etc. So
wow.
Yeah.
There are several more things.
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful to have this time to like I don't even know what I know until I start.
Yeah, I know, it's so fun to have a conversation.
Yeah, I could have been making pizzas in the back of the kitchen for the last few hours, but instead
well, you did make one really delicious one that I ate. Yeah.
I'm glad to feed you. Yeah, I mean, feed you from nutrient dense tomatoes. I mean, I don't know what freezing does to those nutrients. I think they would survive the freezer over winter, but like, we made that pizza sauce from our tomatoes last fall. I didn't make the sauce, but I inherited a bucket in the freezer this spring, and then that was on your pizza. And I mean, the wheat from local farms. So yeah, like how to give a practice to this topic too. Like that's part of my work, why I'm still regretfully at time a chef for like all of the contracts and jobs and travel and like tools. Like, I mean, I'm not on the land or really with the food as much as I'm in spreadsheets and in calls with clients, but all of that is to like give a placement for this whole conversation. Like, and how can food, because we eat, most of us, I don't know about Yogananda's followers and stuff, but like we eat every day unless you're on a fasting or so there's an opportunity in every meal to build that relationship. And so I would say that even if you have McDonald's or have something else, that like let it still be a relationship with the living earth.
Yeah, I felt like shit after that quarter pounder. So that was like, and I was like, I gotta not do this.
Yeah.
But yes, I didn't beat myself up.
Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm
The next
hungry.
meal,
I gotta
another
drive to
chance.
Boston. It's quick.
Yeah.
I get to see my adorable niece,
Yeah.
who's like a real banana, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Organic child.
so let's just get this burger and get on the road.
I mean,
But
that's that, like, I want to talk snack foods now.
Yeah.
I want to talk, like, I have bars in my car,
Right.
you know, just like Lara bars or something like
Yeah.
that. Just like, because those moments are real. And then it's like, what's the other way of like mapping that situation, both of like, there's a really good book. It's a very complex Indian name author, but it's like, you're not hungry, you're dehydrated.
mhm.
So then we go to like developing the tools in that moment for like breath and nervous system regulation. I'm not trying to project onto you, but just like as a
It's
context,
for real, right?
like breath, nervous system regulation, tapping.
Right. And in this case,
Mm.
it wasn't hunger. It was nervousness. Like I'd had a kind of a difficult conversation. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that other meal with that farmer you were saying, like
Yeah.
the small one.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it's like there is a nervous system, there's a dehydration. Then if it really does come to food, like, what are the options? And I drove from California to here this spring, and I didn't purchase one non-organic item the entire time. I didn't go to any fast foods. Like, I've never told anyone that until now. It's not like I'm trying to brag about it, but I
Because
know.
you planned your
Yeah.
snacks.
Well,
Yeah.
I made like several trays worth of granola bars
Mhm.
in advance, and then I would just cut some, and I stopped at certain restaurants or stayed with certain friends, or would go to Safeway and go to the aisle that had the jerky.
Mhm.
And there's like one brand of, you know, the Epic
right.
salmon bars, or
Right.
the Epic
Mm.
little, like, and which Epic Foods is another scam, but like there's another, you know,
And
just
they're
like,
so mushy.
yeah,
Like,
it's
what's
okay.
with the texture?
It's a complex mushy. So there's so many inroads to this topic, and I'm just yeah, grateful to be able to meet you finally.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the first time we met, and so for those who are listening, like right now, if we publish this like tomorrow,
Okay.
so you have a chance to be with us to Goofballs, like August 10th and
to
11th.
14th.
Yes, well, it's a retreat the 10th to the 14th. You'll be there maybe the first couple days.
Yes.
And then I'm already planning like that we're going to do something in California when you get back there.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe we just started a podcast.
This is great. This is great. Well, it feels like you've inspired me in this enough that it's like, I feel like when meet people like you both, that it's like I've been skipping through the woods, or like skipping through a park and everybody's walking. And then all of a sudden I find somebody else who's skipping too. And it's like I don't have to ask them or teach them, or like there's a certain starting point that we can
start
have in
skipping
these.
together.
Yeah,
Aww.
because I feel like I've learned a lot from you over the years, and it's wonderful to be able to meet you in person and to keep learning, because I'm here in Vermont, not just to make pizzas or tacos
At Fable Farm
in Barnard,
I'm
Vermont.
looking forward to a Thursday.
It is
Yeah.
it is really one of the best, like, simple, like, I would still say it's like a lowest common denominator community event, because there's not like much facilitation. Like, it's just, there's live music, but it's good music usually. And then it's a beautiful venue. Like, we're under 100-year-old apple trees on a really nice sloping lawn. Like, for people in California, grass can grow year-round with rain only. This is not an irrigated lawn or pasture. This is a rain-fed lawn. It's green. It's comfortable all summer. I have to remind people in California that this kind of ecology does exist. Yeah, and then there's ice cream from a beautiful organic Jersey dairy across the street.
Across the street, Kiss the Cow Farm. Right.
So,
and by the way, if you're in Vermont and you're listening to this, call your local, what do they call, like legislators,
representatives,
and tell them to lay off
Fable
Farm for their like minuscule little stage that is also a hay barn and like equipment storage thing.
It's
like,
we're
what
caught
the
up in an Act 250 land use debate with the legislators.
Just had to get that in there.
It's really
Is that
unfortunate.
all right to say?
Yeah,
that?
well,
Okay.
we publish every week the Feast and Field, which is the name of the event, publishes a newsletter, and it has an Act 250 update on our process of being harassed really unnecessarily about this situation. I can't speak closely to the details of it, but the newsletter has details, and then we'll be sharing more in the coming weeks as we resist the criminalization of rural life, attempting to make money through something besides just selling our food. Like, we need to host other kinds of things on our land besides.
Right here, like turn that camera over there and just say, like, what we're talking about is this like totally simple structure over there that is both a stage for their dinners in the field and a hay barn and a tractor shed, and it's really quite tiny.
It's so beautiful.
And it's so beautiful. And every farm should have one of those.
Yeah, Fable's been a beautiful part of my summer, and I'm glad it brought me out here, and I'm glad that like this has expanded my questions in the area. Anyway, Fable, the Feast and Field ice cream, we got food, we got drinks,
and music.
We make our own cider and wine from the vineyard that Matt helps tend, and
if you're like me and you don't drink alcohol, there was absolutely delicious.
Non-alcoholic
I don't know what that was called.
A shrub.
Wait, the drink is called a shrub, or it's made out of shrubs?
Both.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Raspberries are in it, and raspberries kind of a shrub or bramble.
But there's like birch
sap
and maple syrup
and vinegar.
And vinegar.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
a shrub is like a sweet and vinegary drink.
Super good.
So lots of good. Yeah, he makes a jun from elderflower, lemon balm, and yarrow.
Made out of juns.
Yeah. Out of what? You're correct.
Juns.
What are juns?
Like a shrub is made out of shrubs.
Oh, a
So
jun.
juns.
Okay, I'm slow to catch these jokes. Yeah, Fable's been wonderful. Please come on Thursdays. It's until September 25th. Every Thursday, 5:30 to 9. Music and food is like 5:30 to 8-ish. Sometimes the bands go longer, sometimes they don't. Lots of diverse bands come through. $5 admission is
That's cool.
$5 to $20. It's a sliding scale, but they used to start it at $0, and I'm really glad that they asked for at least a little admission. You don't have to buy any food. We do ask people not to bring food and alcohol into the event, so you could like.
So you're starving and you need to buy food.
Yeah, come
important.
hungry and thirsty, please. And it's in a collaboration with Barn Arts, which is like another whole part of this. Is like, which, coming back to Daniel Griffith's work and like all of this is how do we regenerate community? It's like we also need music and art to happen in our area. We can't just go to New York City or Boston or Burlington. I don't want to drive an hour and a half to go to a music show. I want it to be in my local ecosystems. And so they're a great partner for Fable in coordinating the music and booking the bands and also getting funding from other grants to pay the bands, because without them we would be unable to host this event, which is a really important detail, because we don't make enough money off of admission to pay the band, the music engineer, the people who set up and break down the speakers every week in the rain at times to keep this event going. And we don't make enough money on our I'll be honest, on our food menu, based on the deep level quality of ingredients that we source to pay for this whole thing to happen, for the staff to come. I mean, there's dozens of people every week who make this thing happen, parking attendants and bartenders and all of this stuff. So it's a really beautiful example of it's not a conference or a workshop or a speech, but it's like a community celebration.
60% of your exit dates are going to feed the community.
Yes, pretty much. We are definitely, or more. Yeah, we're photosynthesizing a lot and giving it away a lot. I mean, the meats on the tacos are from the animals grazed on this land, as well. Like, we purchase masa from Nando in Royalton. We do All Souls tortillas from Burlington, Vermont. Yeah, it's a really beautiful gathering. And what I was closing with a moment ago before we got on that was just my time here is only April to October. And it's like an assignment that I feel like I was sent on to like deepen my work in the world. And I don't know where that's going or what I'm meant to do, like from farmer to chef to professor. And now I'm like, what is the next level of bringing like my passion for chefs as catalysts for bioregional ecosystem regeneration to like a larger tale, and how that gets done. I still need to make my tokens to live in the matrix, but I also want to do a larger work on myself of not just cooking tacos in a kitchen. Like there's a deeper work, and I feel like your journey through your acupuncture and your other clinic work to now this land and leadership initiative is inspiring, because you're like a pretty grounded, and I would call you like a simple Vermont woman. You travel the world.
I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and New
Okay.
York City and Seattle.
Okay, wow, you
so
have an
yeah.
urban background.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you fooled me pretty well.
But I've been here 32 years. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
no, so I know that my son was making fun of my
No, you're fine.
my hiking boot
Oh, your
dress
hiking
thing. You know, he's
Okay,
like,
the
"You look very
combination.
Vermont today."
You're
Yeah.
very Vermont. Yeah, well, I appreciate meeting you and feeling inspired by your journey. Is I guess what I mean by that is like, where do we go with this work? What does it mean to be a human? How do we catalyze this work together?
Good questions. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm looking forward to many more conversations, including very soon. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2 weeks.
In Deptford. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me into this too.
It's the three of us around a picnic table.
Yeah, I love it. It's really nice meeting you.
Great to meet you. Yeah. And back to the sounds of industrial